Mr. Speaker, sir, I thank members of this House for your support and participation at this debate on our Fortitude budget. You have spent many hours raising many points, so it will not be possible for me to respond to each and every one of your points. But where there are good ideas, the various ministries will take it up, and my various colleagues will address this later. Now, in rounding up this debate, let me start by sharing my perspective on the nature of this crisis and the global and historical context. COVID-19 is a global crisis of our generation. Within 6 months, WHO estimates that the coronavirus has infected 6.4 million people, claimed over 380,000 lives, disrupted lives and livelihoods, and closed borders worldwide. Never before have we seen a global lockdown of this scale. The pandemic has exposed vulnerabilities in global supply chains, accelerated digitization and technological changes, and fragmented global markets. There is huge uncertainty on both the health and economic fronts, and in fact, there's opened up other fronts. The trigger of this virus, the coronavirus, will continue to disrupt lives until a vaccine or suitable therapeutics is developed. The IMF projects that the global economy to contract sharply by 3 percentage points. This is much worse than the 0.07% contraction during the global financial crisis, and is unseen since the Great Depression. There are serious cascading effects on employment and people all over the world. This comes amidst escalating geostrategic competition between the US and China, which could destabilize the global order. COVID-19 is having a huge impact on the global economy because it shocked both the demand and supply side of the economy simultaneously. On the demand side, reduced social interactions and weakened consumer confidence have significantly reduced consumption, which in turn reduced income and investment levels. On the supply side, global lockdowns have disrupted deeply integrated supply chains across borders and slowed global trade and investment. These shocks reinforce each other and threaten to impair the long-term productive capacity of economies. Measures that depend primarily on stimulating demand in the economy will not work due to supply chain disruptions. Ms. Denise Phua and several other MPs asked about the global outlook. The road to recovery will be long as we deal with persistent economic impact on workers, jobs, and business. Beyond economic costs, there will be immense human and social costs. The world took 8 to 10 years following the Great Depression and global financial crisis to recover pre-crisis unemployment levels. And we should not be surprised that it takes as long, if not longer, to bounce back from the effects of COVID-19. The First World War had a lasting impact on the employment prospects of a lost generation of youth in Western economies, stripping them of a sense of hope and direction. There is now talk of a global lockdown generation, and fears that the youth of our time could have their skills, employability, and incomes permanently affected, even after the world recovers from the pandemic. We must work to prevent a COVID generation of workers and students in Singapore. All over the world, we've seen a catch-22 situation developing as governments grapple with the tensions between saving lives and livelihoods. The reluctance to freeze activities due to heavy economic losses has had tragic consequences. Delayed and incomplete measures to stem infections resulted in a massive number of casualties as healthcare systems were overwhelmed. Singapore has managed to avert some of the harsher outcomes from COVID-19. We're able to act boldly, and Singaporeans stood in unity, trusted the government, and worked together to save lives and livelihoods. We imposed a prolonged circuit breaker to significantly reduce the community transmission rates over the past 2 months. We set up a joint task force to deal with the situation amongst our migrant worker community, and the situation is improving. Aggressive testing and the professional dedication of our healthcare team has kept fatalities low. Our battle against COVID-19 has reached an inflection point. We have now taken the first steps to reopen our economy safely in a gradual and systematic way. We are now 4 days into our phased reopening. If infection rates remain low and stable, we expect large parts of the economy to be able to reopen by the end of June. We'll continue to provide support for our workers and businesses to tide through this period. Internationally, we're working to gradually reopen our borders safely with other countries. This will allow for business travel, which is essential for our open economy. The Singapore-China fast lane is a first step in this reopening of borders. Around the world, many countries have started to reopen, and we are watching them closely. They too have taken a phased approach. When infection cases slowed to a trickle, China started to reopen in late April, and South Korea, Germany, and Japan relaxed their lockdown in May. France did so this week. Infection rates rose for some countries that reopened earlier, but they are actively managing the situation and working hard to respond to the new infections. We are dealing with a highly infectious and agile virus. The world is learning on the go. So we must be psychologically prepared that infections could rise somewhat, even with the best precautionary measures. We are thus not reopening and going back to our familiar routines, but into a new, uncertain reality. Singaporeans must learn and adapt to the new reality. We must adjust to new norms such as higher standards of personal and public hygiene, safe distancing, and reduced social contact. We'll need to adjust to new ways of working, such as telecommuting, and acquire new skills relevant in the new economy. Changing habits is difficult, but we must all do our best. Government interventions have become the cornerstone of the COVID-19 response, as population look towards the one institution that can organize and mobilize. There has been a flight to leadership. Administrations, regardless of where they sit on the political spectrum or their belief in government intervention, have responded with substantial support packages. Some have also stepped in to support distressed corporates, from airlines to car makers. We too have mounted a strong response because life and livelihoods are at stake. We are committing almost $100 billion, or close to 20% of our GDP, to our COVID-19 response. Adding the COVID-19 response to our usual spending, the total size of our 4 budgets stands at $193 billion. This is more than double the size of our annual budgets in preceding year. In other words, we are looking to spend in 1 year what we would have done in 2 years or more in normal times. This is a very big commitment. Beyond the size of headline numbers, what matters even more is whether resources are directed to the right areas to enable our people and our economy to rebound faster and stronger. Design and implementation are critical. The measures in our 4 budgets have been designed to not only respond to the crisis, but to also enable Singapore to emerge stronger. The measures aim to protect life and livelihoods, to deal with immediate concerns, and to build for our future. Our budgets aim to minimize the spread of the virus and risks to lives, which has largely been successful. Stabilize the economy, save jobs and viable companies, and protect livelihoods. Reposition workers, businesses, and the community to monitor the major shifts and seize new opportunities so as to emerge stronger. We have put our people at the center of our budgets. Our measures on protecting livelihoods center on helping people to stay employed and businesses to stay viable. The fortunes of workers and businesses are intertwined. By keeping the economy stable, we strengthen social resilience. By investing in upgrading the skills of our people and transforming our businesses, the economy can recover more strongly. This is why over $72 billion, or close to 80% of the amount set aside for the COVID-19 response, is committed to helping our workers stay in their jobs and supporting our businesses and their employees, which in turn support social resilience. As our labour movement firmly believes, a job is the best welfare. The remaining goes to public health and social support measures to supplement and strengthen the significant investments made and structural measures already in place. Having set out the global context, let me now respond to the various issues raised in the budget debate under three broad themes. First, supporting jobs, livelihoods, and our future economy. Second, maintaining a strong fiscal position. Third, drawing on our deep reserves of social capital. Let me start with jobs and livelihoods, which many MPs spoke about. This has indeed been the focus of our budgets. COVID-19 will take a lasting toll on the quantity and quality of jobs worldwide, despite countries' best efforts to mitigate the impact. The International Labour Organization has estimated that COVID-19 could raise global unemployment numbers by far higher than 25 million. This is worse than the 2009 global financial crisis, which saw additional global unemployment of some 22 million workers. For Singapore, the highest annual number of unemployed residents on record was registered during the 2003 SARS epidemic at 91,000 unemployed residents. The impact of the COVID-19 pandemic is widely expected to be more severe than SARS, with the number of unemployed residents potentially rising from around 73,000 above 100,000 in 2020. The economic fallout of COVID-19 goes beyond unemployment numbers. Even those who keep their jobs may suffer underemployment and significant income loss. This could lead to a vicious cycle where income loss reduces consumption, which affected businesses further reduce labor demand. The human and social effects of unemployment and underemployment are no less debilitating. For many of us, having a job means more than getting paid. Through our jobs, we are connected to the workings of the world and to other people, and we take pride in being a contributing member of society. At a personal level, losing a job can lead to a loss of identity, confidence, and dignity. This is why when COVID-19 struck, our top priority is to provide fiscal resources to help workers stay in their jobs. The SG United Jobs and Skills Package seeks to not only grow pathway to jobs, but also equip workers and their firms with capabilities for the coming years. Our labour movement is a key partner. I thank Secretary General Ng Chee Meng, Deputy Secretaries General Mr. Heng Chee Hao and Dr. Koh Poh Kun for NTUC's unwavering support and partnership during these uncertain times, and all our NTUC colleagues who have spoken on behalf of workers in this House. Indeed, every worker matters. Our Jobs and Skills Package goes hand in hand with transformation in every business and at the industry level through our Industry Transformation Maps or ITMs. Every business that is confronted with structural changes and the shocks from COVID-19 will need to take a long, hard look at its business model. They will need new markets, new products, or process innovations, and need to harness new technologies. They may need to work with their competitors as industries consolidate for scale. I'm glad that many of our business leaders understand more than ever we cannot take the business as usual or BAU attitude, or else there will be no business left. Existing jobs will need to be redesigned. New good jobs will be created in growth areas. How do businesses get the right people into these redesigned or new jobs? By hiring the right people and building up their skills. fresh graduates or mid-career individuals with experience from other sectors are good choices. So are existing staff who can be reskilled. Business transformation, creating and sustaining good jobs, need to be done as part of a coherent business and industry transformation plan. Dr. Koh Poh Koon shared many examples of how the labour movement has partnered and supported businesses through their transformation journeys. There are three thrusts to our jobs and skills package. First, we'll save jobs in viable businesses and preserve worker capability in sectors which are temporarily hard hit. The Jobs Support Scheme, which are enhanced over the 4 budgets, will flow a total of $23.5 billion to support 1.9 million jobs over 10 months. Close to 2/3 of these jobs are in our SMEs. Over $11 billion have already gone out to help employers defray wage costs. I'm heartened to hear that many businesses have found the support useful and have factored it into their decision to retain jobs and workers. Let me be clear so people understand. The Jobs Support Scheme is what its name says clearly. It is meant to support jobs. We're not supporting businesses for their own sakes. We're supporting businesses defraying their wage costs so that they can retain and pay workers. Second, we'll open up pathways to new jobs across a range of skills level and help local job seekers of all ages and profiles access them. As Minister Josephine Teo explained, we'll create about 100,000 opportunities to help local job seekers take on new jobs, including in emerging and growth areas, such as infocom technologies, financial services, and healthcare. I thank Senior Minister Tharman Shanmugaratnam for agreeing to chair the National Jobs Council to oversee this major effort to keep jobs and help people bounce back should they become unemployed. The Council had a productive first meeting just 2 days ago. Again, I stress the effort we are making is unprecedented. Never before in our history have we set out to preserve so many jobs, as well as create so many new opportunities, 100,000. The Council has already begun its task. I also encourage our workers to step out of their comfort zone and acquire new skills to prepare for the structural changes ahead. For example, Mr. Gu Chong Kiet embarked on a Professional Conversion Program, or PCP, as a senior engineer with systems on Silicon Manufacturing Company during the circuit breaker, as he wanted to deepen his skills in areas of Industry 4.0. His advice to others enrolling in PCPs is to keep an open mind and be ready to adapt to a dynamic environment. I cannot agree more. Third, we are dedicating additional help to groups which are harder hit, including our graduating students, our mid-career workers, and self-employed persons. As Mr. Ang Hin Kee, Mr. Desmond Chu, Ms. Jessica Tan, and Professor Lim San San have pointed out, we need concerted efforts to support these groups. I also thank Mr. Pritam Singh for his support. MOS Zaki Mohammed covered many of the initiatives in his speech earlier. Our fresh job entrants will get enhanced access to jobs and traineeship opportunities in growth areas through the Tech Skills Accelerator programs mentioned by Minister Iswaran yesterday. Our public agencies are also stepping up efforts to help. Mr. Muhammad Shabil bin Muhammad Sazali is a fresh graduate from NUS Computer Engineering. This July, he will enroll in Cybersecurity Agency's 18-month Cybersecurity Development Program. Shabil will be amongst the first batch of 40 officers to be groomed as cybersecurity professionals. With widespread digitalization, demand for cybersecurity professionals will grow. Mature workers will receive strong support from the SkillsFuture Mid-Career Support Package and enhancements to the Adapt and Grow programs introduced at the Unity budget. Mr. Chew Kok Po was an operations executive with ST Logistics for close to 19 years. With the deployment of automated guided vehicles and a warehouse management system, his role was significantly transformed as a large portion of warehouse operation processes became automated. ST Logistics leveraged the WSG redeployment PCP to upskill Kokpo for the enhanced logistics executive role. He now works with the new automation systems to manage warehouse operations and conducts data analysis to plan their weekly manpower resources. I appreciate Mr. Hing Chee Hao's support for our schemes to give our mature workers a leg up in the workplace. We are now encouraging employers to redesign jobs as part of their broader enterprise transformation efforts through the Enterprise Development Grant, the Productivity Solutions Grant, Job Redesign, and the Skills Future Enterprise Grant. By pegging the hiring incentive for eligible mature job seekers at 40%, which is double the rate for that of younger workers, we are helping more mature workers to find new employers. Many seniors can and want to work longer. We'll continue to support them through the Senior Workers Support Package. I join Minister Josephine Teo and Secretary General Ng Chee Meng in thanking the many firms who have already stepped forward to play their part in supporting the creation of good jobs pathways. Banks, both local and foreign, are grooming the local talent pipeline by pledging to offer close to 900 traineeships for fresh graduates and job seekers. Mr. Seah Kian Peng also spoke about the support from NTUC FairPrice and enterprise groups, which have offered some 4,000 jobs and 300 traineeships. I encourage more businesses to think long-term and continue to invest in people, or what economists call human capital development. Skilled workers make strong firms, and strong firms create good jobs. Every business, every worker must seek to maximize this synergy. But despite our best efforts, we cannot possibly save every job. Many sectors were already facing disruptions before COVID-19. For workers who are displaced, you have our assurance that if you make the effort, our tripartite partners will support you to tide through this difficulty. Before COVID-19 struck, structural changes such as the fragmentation of global supply chains and technological changes were already in motion. COVID-19 has triggered both a deep cyclical shock and accelerating structural changes in the global economy. To thrive, or even to survive, companies all around the world must adjust to these forces with speed and agility. In Singapore, we are fortunate that we started our structural transformation efforts early, and companies that have made the efforts are adapting better. In 2015, we set up the Committee on the Future Economy. The committee charted strategies to build our capacity for a vibrant, strong future economy and to create good opportunities for our people. From 2016, we launched our industry transformation maps to systematically bring together stakeholders to transform our industries across all 23 sectors and 6 industry clusters. Some business leaders have told us that by embarking on transformation early, they have found it easier to pivot to new areas of opportunity. One example is Forefront Medical, a precision engineering firm providing manufacturing services to the medical industry. Prior to COVID-19, Forefront Medical has started building up automation capabilities, adding clean room capacity and growing its local medtech talent pool. These capabilities enabled the company to supply to more global medical companies when the pandemic struck. Forefront Medical also managed to pivot into the diagnostic space by acquiring capabilities in reagents manufacturing for COVID-19 test kits. It has already secured a deal with one test kit company and is in discussions with 2 more. Last week, I had an e-conference with a group of startups and venture funds in Singapore. The progress that they have made in seizing new opportunities cheered me, including the Safe Bicycle Helmet, 3D printing of instruments for swab tests, and telemedicine. In the interest of time, let me just share a few more examples to give a flavor of the progress. And the first flavor is Shiok Meat, a startup working to harvest crustacean meats from cells instead of animals, thereby eliminating the risk of foodborne diseases. It aims to introduce these alternative proteins grown in food manufacturing facilities to restaurants in the next 2 years. Novate provides smart fuel management software for the building and construction industry. Since COVID-19 struck, Novate has launched new functionalities to enable health monitoring procedures on work sites, and is now helping clients with these functions to restart and carry out operations safely. And vSense specializes in retail AI solutions, including virtual tryouts of products using a real-time camera recognition function. It has been piloting these new technologies with retailers to get ready for a new normal in post-COVID-19 shopping, and is now doubling its efforts to help retail clients worldwide transform their operations. The startup mantra is to disrupt the world to make it better. But with COVID-19 disrupting the world, it's good to see startups pivoting to enabling us to cope better with a disrupted world, with the right innovations. In the face of the deep uncertainties that confront the world today, what must Singapore do to survive and succeed? The post-COVID world will be different from today. We may not know the exact contours of how this world will look like, but we know the forces that are shaping it. The Emerging Stronger Task Force, led by Minister Desmond Lee and PSA International Group CEO Tan Chong Meng, are studying key shifts and developing recommendations in the areas of technology and innovation, digitalization, and disruption to global supply chains. In the course of its work, the task force will consult multiple stakeholders and draw on insights beyond its membership so that their findings and recommendations are relevant. Many MPs spoke about the need to respond quickly to structural shifts, and I thank MPs including Mr. Ang Wei Deng, Ms. Shara Chan, and Mr. Douglas Foo for their insights. Accelerating our economic transformation is indeed a national priority, and both workers and employers must do their part to stay focused on this. Our Fortitude budget not only cushions firms to tide over immediate cash flow, cost, and credits challenges that MPs, including Mr. Darrell David and engineer Dr. Livelihoods spoke about, but also helps accelerate digital transformation and build capabilities to emerge stronger when the recovery comes. Minister Iswaran sets out clearly that this crisis has crystallized the need and opportunity for digitalization. And we can only emerge stronger by making a decisive push towards a digital future. And as Mr. Christopher D'Souza puts it, riding this wave of digitalization is key to ensuring that our Singaporeans are ready for borderless job opportunities. There will also be a premium on resilience. As Mr. Arasu Dorasamy, Mr. Patrick Tay, and Mr. Satyandi Supat pointed out, one way for businesses to do this, to build resilience, is to build a strong Singaporean core. This will not only create opportunities for our local workers, but also help our businesses continue to operate sustainably, even as other economies grow and develop, or even if there are disruptions to external labor supply. In our next phase of growth, we must anchor Singapore as a global Asia node of technology, innovation, and enterprise. Like a pearl that is part of a strand of vital global nodes across the world, we must play a valued and inextricable role in the new global configuration. We'll do so by forging new partnerships and bringing new value to the world through innovation and deep capabilities, including technological capabilities. I'm bringing together the work of our Future Economy Council and the Research, Innovation and Enterprise Council to do so by enabling our industry clusters to harness the rich opportunities catalyzed by innovation networks and the creation of new scientific knowledge. And as Associate Professor Walter Teixeira said, we must undertake this great exercise of economic restructuring together as equal partners and as one people in the creation of a new Singapore. The COVID-19 situation is a mighty storm that has damaged sails and forced ships around the world to go into harbor. While waiting for the storm to subside, we must make the best use of this downtime to build new strengths and capabilities. Let us take this rare chance to repair, upgrade our ship, and install new instruments, reorientate our mental compass, and strengthen our sailors so that when the fair wind comes, we will sail out faster and further than ever before. This is what our 4 budgets enable us to do. Let us make the best use of this. I've explained our immediate priorities to support jobs and livelihoods, and why we need to accelerate transformation. Let me now respond to members' comments on our approach to fund such measures through our 4 budgets. I thank many members for recognizing that Singapore's fiscal response has been timely, comprehensive, and decisive, and that it is commensurate with the widespread and unprecedented impact of the crisis. Our strong response is projected to stabilise economic activity during this difficult period and position Singapore for recovery. Based on a recent study by MAS, our 4 budgets are estimated to help our economy avert an average output loss of 5 percentage points, or $23.4 billion per year, over 2020 and 2021. Now, this is very significant because when you have a higher base, it means that your future growth, even at the same percentage rate, means that you reach a higher level. As Mr. Alex Young mentioned, some are of the view that we've spent too much, while others think it's too little. These contrasting views show that the crisis budgeting is anything but straightforward. These decisions have been made after careful deliberations, based on the best information available at that time. As the COVID-19 situation develops, we have continued to enhance and refine our schemes, as evidenced by our 4 budgets. Even then, let us stay vigilant. As I said at the outset, we are facing unprecedented levels of uncertainty across various fronts. Mr. Liang Eng Hua, in opening the debate, highlighted a distinctive feature of the Fortitude budget, that we are setting aside an additional $13 billion in the contingencies funds. Such contingency budgeting reflects both the unprecedented levels of severity as well as uncertainty of this crisis. Mr. Liang asked if the government can provide an indication of how the funds may potentially be used. As designed, the contingencies fund can be drawn upon if there is a need to do so. And as designed, we have not designated specific purposes for the funds. In sizing it, we have run some what-if scenarios, including the possibility that we may experience a setback in our fight against COVID-19, or the global economy does much worse than currently expected. So unlike our usual annual budget, where we seek to provide as much details as possible, we are setting aside a sum to meet future events or circumstances that are possible, but for which we cannot yet predict with certainty. This is indeed a special feature that allows us to respond swiftly to unforeseen developments. I thank Mr. Liang for pointing this out. Mr. Pritam Singh asked about the governance around the use of contingencies funds. The use of contingencies funds is not new. Each year, we have $3 billion in the contingencies funds to meet urgent and unforeseen needs. With greater uncertainties, it is natural for us to cater for a bigger quantum. The Singapore Constitution includes safeguards over its use. First, the government will need to seek President's concurrence for drawing down the contingencies funds. Second, these drawdowns must be replaced through a subsequent supplementary supply bill or a final supply bill that have to be presented to and voted on by Parliament before seeking President's assent. This provides additional checks and balances over new spending from the contingencies funds. We'll continue to ensure judicious use of the contingencies funds for urgent and unforeseen needs. When the uncertainty subsides, we can reduce the amount set aside in the contingencies funds. Several members have also pointed out another exceptional feature of our budgets this financial year, the draw on past reserves. For most countries, borrowing is the only way to fund their largest stimulus package. This increases the risk of unsustainable debt financing, which has severe consequences for the economy in the long run. Countries that have taken on significant additional debt to pay for their support measures will have to find new ways to repay their debt and interest accrued. Future generations will be required to shoulder this debt in the form of higher taxes, higher inflation, or lower returns on their retirement assets. Future generations will also be affected in other ways. In order to service debt repayment, there will be less fiscal room to invest in human capital or infrastructure. The lockdown generation in these countries will end up paying for this crisis a long way down the road. We are fortunate that in this hour of crisis, we have our national reserves to depend on. Our reserves allow us to deal with this crisis from a position of strength and give us options in a period of uncertainty like this. Our reserves are our rainy day fund. Mr. Vikram Nair likened our reserves to a golden goose, painstakingly built up since our independence. As Ms. Ting Pei Ling and Mr. Murali Pillai have pointed out, our reserves are our key strategic advantage in the current environment. First, it assures Singaporeans that we have the means to navigate the challenges ahead, to protect our lives, and to sustain our livelihoods. Second, it fosters confidence in global investors that our economic fundamentals are sound and stable in the long term, and that we have enough resources to emerge stronger from the crisis. Third, it protects us during this period of flux. Detractors and speculators know well enough not to take advantage of this crisis to attack our economy or currency. We did not get here by chance or good fortune. We have designed and implemented policies that discourage waste or overconsumption. We have run our public service based on outcomes, not on the size of spending. In short, we are in this fortunate position because of consistent hard work, prudence, long-term planning, and discipline of those who came before us. Such prudence and discipline are not always appreciated. We have had vigorous debates in this House on whether the government could afford to spend more freely from reserves instead of running budget surpluses. Even as recently as January this year, before the Unity Budget was unveiled, many commentators inside and outside this House speculated on how large our accumulated reserves would be. Yet, it took only 3 months into FY 2020 to use up the accumulated surplus that we had built over the current term of government, since the start of this term of government. And even that is not enough. So mounting COVID-19 packages amounting to nearly $100 billion, of which more than half is funded from the reserves, is not a trivial matter, especially when our yearly budget is about $80 billion. The total of our 4 budgets, including the COVID-19 packages, is more than double the size of our annual budgets in preceding years. Our reserves are a limited resource, and we must not take them for granted. We owe it to our people, seniors, middle-aged, young, and those yet to be born to be prudent and ensure good governance so that they too have the resources to navigate future challenges in an uncertain world. Ms. Fumiha, Ms. Ting Pei Ling, Mr. Ershad asked if we would restore the $52 billion drawn from our past reserves and how long that would take. There is no legal or constitutional obligation for the government to do so. The government put back into the past reserves the $4 billion it had earlier drawn on in 2009 during the global financial crisis. And not a single cent of the $150 billion of reserves that backed the government's guarantee of bank deposits was used when our banking system emerged safely from the global financial crisis. This current crisis is of a significantly larger scale and reach than the global financial crisis. We are facing huge uncertainties regarding the course of the pandemic and its economic and social implications. We do not know. What we do know is that there will likely not be a V-shaped recovery, unlike in past crises. And the amount that we're tapping on is $52 billion. So how long would it take to build this back? We cannot be definitive. At this moment, we must focus our minds fully on making the best use of the resources that we have deployed, be prepared to work hard in the years to come, and have the resolve to rebuild our economy. In this way, the Singapore economy can emerge stronger and will be in a strong position to build up our resources. But rest assured that we are committed to rebuild not just our reserves, but also to continue developing Singaporeans and building Singapore. Mr. Faisal Manap and Mr. Dennis Tan asked if the President was given information on the amount available in the reserves when the government sought her in-principle support for drawing on them. I'm surprised that both Mr. Faisal and Mr. Dennis Tan had to ask. It is public information that under our Constitution, the President has access to information about the size of reserves. Under Article 22F of the Constitution, in the exercise of a function under the Constitution, the President is entitled to any information regarding the reserves. In addition, on the MOF website, it is already mentioned that the President has full information about the size of the reserves. In the process of seeking President's approval, the government has conducted 2 briefings to President and the Council of Presidential Advisors. These briefings cover the government's assessment of the global and local health and economic situations, the details of the measures, and the resources needed. Ministers Gan Kim Yong, Chan Chun Sing, Lawrence Wong, Indrani Raja were with me. In our system, the President is the custodian of our past reserves. She needs to concur with any draw, and her decision is made in full knowledge of why the draw is necessary and the size of our reserves. In fact, members have heard the President's message in the resilience budget delivered on her behalf by the Speaker just before my ministerial statement then. We have a strict governance system scrupulously observed. Now, some have also asked why the government does not review the size of the reserves and let the public decide if we should use more. As Mr. Vikram Nair has noted, the size of the reserves invested by MAS and Temasek is public information, but the amount invested by GIC is not disclosed. As I had explained this to members of this House during my last roundup speech in early April, it is not in our national interest to review the full size of our reserves. Besides being a buffer against crisis and providing investment returns to supplement our annual budget, our reserves also form our strategic defense against threats. And as a strategic asset, we will be diminishing its value if we disclose this for potential adversaries to use against us. No responsible leader will lay bare your nation's defense plan. Mr. Satyajit Supat asks if we should take advantage of the lower interest rates now to borrow more to fund expenditure. Fiscal discipline is one of the fundamental principles underpinning Singapore's fiscal system. We spend prudently within our means and responsibly with a value for money culture. The rule is to run balanced budgets for each term of government remains relevant. We also spend equitably with the principle that each generation bears the cost of the benefits that they enjoy. That is why we do not borrow to fund our recurrent spending. Doing so means getting our children to fund our current spending. There will be less resources for our children after repaying such debt. While interest rates may be low now, there is no certainty that we will be able to repay accumulated debt obligations in the future. This is especially so with uncertain economic outlook, where all countries, including Singapore, will be operating in a tighter fiscal space. While we have good reasons not to borrow for our current expenditure, the government is already using debt productively and equitably to generate long-term returns for Singapore. First, the government issues debt securities domestically, for instance, to develop the domestic debt market. The borrowing proceeds are invested and we are able to cover the debt servicing costs through the investment returns. Second, as announced in Budget 2019, the government will guarantee the borrowing by Changi Airport Group to fund the development of Changi East, including Terminal 5. In this way, we leverage the strength of the government's balance sheet to reduce borrowing costs. The debt repayments will be made during a period when the airport will be generating economic returns. Lastly, as I had also mentioned in Budget 2019, the government is considering borrowing for major long-term infrastructure. Long-term infrastructure requires hefty upfront investments and the costs are lumpy. But once built, they benefit many generations of Singaporeans. Borrowing for such development allows us to spread costs equitably across current and future generations without the need for sharp increases in taxes. We have done so in the past. We borrow for many worthwhile investments that have benefited several generations, such as the first terminal at Changi Airport and our first MRT lines. They will continue to generate growth for future generations of Singaporeans. I'm glad that MPs have raised concerns about the sustainability of tapping on the reserves. Ms. Ting Pei Ling asked whether we are leaving enough reserves behind for future generations. Ms. Foo Mee Ha and Mr. Muhammad Ishaq asked how the draw will influence our policies moving forward. The crisis has underscored the importance of upholding the prudence and discipline of our forefathers to spend responsibly and prepare for the future. This is why, even as we devote considerable resources to overcome the immediate challenges posed by COVID-19, we must continue to plan ahead to secure a fiscally sustainable future. In the medium to long term, our structural needs will persist and significant fiscal outlay will be required. We need to continue investing in healthcare, education and training, and infrastructure, so that we have adequate capacity to take care of our seniors and support an aging population, so that we give every child a good start and give every Singaporean the opportunity to reskill and upskill to access good jobs, and so that Singapore remains a livable city and a place we are proud to call home. These heavy and rising expenditures were known even before the outbreak of COVID-19. COVID-19 has increased the urgency of some of these investments, such as developing advanced medical research and production capabilities and expanding training capacity for our workers. It is hence critical that we deploy the right mix of fiscal instruments that meets our principles of prudence and equitable spending. As I mentioned earlier, major long-term infrastructure spending, which requires hefty upfront investment but benefits many generations of Singaporeans, may be financed through borrowing to fairly distribute the cost among those who benefit. On the other hand, recurrent spending should be met with recurrent revenues. Such spending primarily benefits the current generation of Singaporeans, and so it is fair and responsible for all of us to do our part and chip in. In the Unity budget, I announced that the GST rate increase will not take effect in 2021. However, we will not be able to put off the increase indefinitely, and this will still be needed by 2025. When the GST rate increase does take place, we'll cushion the impact for Singaporeans. $6 billion in funds have already been set aside during the Unity budget for the assurance package. This is sufficient to offset at least 5 years' worth of additional GST expenses for the majority of households, and more for lower income ones. We'll continue to absorb GST on publicly funded healthcare and education. Overall, our taxes and transfers system will remain fair and progressive. With this differentiated and principled fiscal strategy, each generation rightly pays for the benefits that they enjoy, and we do not saddle future generations with our bills. This is an equitable approach and will continue to be the cornerstone of fiscal sustainability for Singapore. Mr. Speaker, sir, there is a reason why I call this our Fortitude budget. I now sit in the last week of the circuit breaker. Today, we debate the budget a few days into phase 1 of our reopening. The Fortitude budget supports us as we gradually reopen our society and economy, braces us for the difficult months ahead, and prepares us to emerge stronger. During this time, I've seen and felt Singaporeans' fortitude in action. They have been driven and inspired by the fortitude of our people and companies. We have been driven and inspired by the fortitude of our people and companies. Fortitude itself is not an accidental quality. As Mr. Christopher D'Souza said, it is about courage in adversity. It is forged in crisis past and hardened in crisis present. It comes from the strength of mind and character. In the case of Singapore, our fortitude comes too from the strength of our reserves, the financial reserves that I've just spoken about, and just as important, our deep reserves of social capital. Our social capital is made up of the intangible bonds that unite our multiracial society, the bonds of trust among ourselves and between people and the government, our national conversations on the Singapore we want to build. It is the spirit of Singapore Together, where all parts of society work together in partnership, keeping us strong and united, even as a pandemic fragments many societies. Minister Josephine Teo and Secretary General Ng Chee Meng shared how our tripartite structure acts to build fortitude in our workforce. I would like to acknowledge and honor the fortitude of our people. This crisis has brought the best in our community. Many Singaporeans have come together to donate their solidarity payments to charitable causes. Over 10,000 people have stepped forward over the past 2 months to volunteer. They run errands for seniors living alone, distribute care packs, manage the National Care Hotline, and deliver food supplies to migrant workers and vulnerable families, among others. For example, during his in-camp training, Mr. Rajasegaran Ramachandran stepped up to serve at the front line as a medic at the Singapore Expo care facility to care for COVID-19 patients, as he wanted to do his part for the nation. Corporate volunteer centers and community groups have also come together to contribute. And there are many encouraging stories of people helping one another, such as seniors providing mutual support. Madam Julie Lee, at age 82, frequently checked in with fellow seniors on the phone and shared healthy cooking recipes with them during the circuit breaker. I'm sure many of us would like to look as youthful as Madam Julie Lee at age 82. Individuals, too, have shown resilience and adapted to seize new opportunities. Ms. Catherine Tang, who has mild autism and works at the art faculty store at the Enabling Village, attended online courses during the circuit breaker to improve her customer service skills and support the store's e-commerce platforms. I met her, I think, over a year ago, and it's good to see her keeping so cheerful. Many public servants across different agencies have been working hard during COVID-19 to help Singaporeans. They coordinate our pandemic response, respond to Singaporeans' queries, implement support measures, and keep out regular government services. Many more have stepped up to take on frontline roles, such as safe distancing ambassadors, to help keep our communities safe. Let me express, on behalf of this House, our appreciation to our many volunteers and donors, to our frontline officers, and to all our people in Singapore who have taken the precautionary measures seriously and done your part. Every constructive action adds to our social reserves that allow us to face this challenge with fortitude. I encourage more Singaporeans to step forward and help one another in our community. And in fact, contrary to what Mr. Singh mentioned earlier about that we are only consulting with people inside the business community, in fact, the government has taken extra effort to take a far broader approach. I think yesterday Ms. Shara Chand spoke about our Singapore conversation and Singapore together. And just last week, Ministers Desmond Lee and Grace Fu and Indrani and I had a very good discussion with leaders in our social services agencies. We all felt very cheered by the dedication of our people in the front line. They were doing their utmost to support our vulnerable people. It is a great example of democracy of deed, of taking action to make a difference. And Ms. Yip Ping Siu earlier mentioned about the sports community and how they are supporting one another. So in growing our social reserves, we must continue to support and care for those who have less and those who have fallen on hard times. We'll walk this journey with you and leave no one behind. Over the last 2 days, MPs like Mr. Ang Hin Kee, Mr. Lim Biao Chuan, Ms. Sylvia Lim, Mr. Gan Thiam Poh, and Mr. Louis Ng proposed refinements and additional measures for various groups in our society. I appreciate your feedback and suggestions. In coming out with each of the budgets, my colleagues and I have reached out through many channels: social service agencies, community partners, unionists, and grassroots leaders, to identify where the greatest needs are. We then carefully considered how we can help those who are most in need, especially those among us who are less able to articulate their needs. The result is not perfect, but has gone a long way in elevating pain points. Mr. Zainal Sapari, Ms. Foo Mee Ha, and Ms. Antia Ong asked if we can enhance existing COVID-19 support schemes for low-income workers and households, especially if unemployment persists. While some COVID-19 schemes, such as the Solidarity Payments and Solidarity Utilities Credits, cover all Singaporeans, the overall payouts are tilted towards lower to middle income groups, as they have less to fall back on in difficult times. During this COVID-19 period, 60% of households can receive additional benefits equivalent to 12% of household income on average. These benefits include cash assistance from the Temporary Relief Fund, COVID-19 support grants, and workfare special payments, among others. This is a significant sum, double that given out during the global financial crisis. There may be instances of families who marginally miss the eligibility criteria, but also need help. We'll assess this on a case-by-case basis and refine our schemes as the situation develops. Other MPs like Ms. Cheng Li Hui, Ms. Jessica Tan, Mr. Liang Eng Hua, and Ms. Sylvia Lim raised concerns on how some Singaporeans may feel marginalized by the rapid adoption of digital technology. Minister Iswaran laid out our roadmap for a digital future, with digital inclusion at the heart of our plans. New initiatives like the SG Digital Office, Hawkers Go Digital, and Seniors Go Digital will complement existing programs such as NEU PC Plus and Home Access. We take your concerns, like the need to equip our seniors with cybersecurity awareness, seriously. But we should not let fear paralyze us into sticking with the status quo. As the world changes, we want to move fast on digital transformation. But more importantly, we are determined to move together in digital inclusion. Ms. Denise Phua, Ms. Yip Ping Siu, and Mr. Melvin Yong also call for more support for vulnerable groups, including those with special needs and mental health conditions. I thank Ms. Denise Phua for reminding us of my statement that social services agencies are a key partner in our support for our people. And also, Ms. Denise Phua has made a thoughtful suggestions, or several suggestions, including one to formalize a work stream on employment for people with disabilities within the National Jobs Council. I've just spoken to Senior Minister Thurmond, and in fact, both of us welcome her leadership on this and are glad to support her proposal. Together with our community partners, we have put in resources, finances, networks, and systems over the years to support the vulnerable, and I assure members that we will continue to do so. For example, we have built up fiscal networks to strengthen social service delivery through the SG Cares Community Network. Such fiscal links are complemented with digital ones to build up bonds among people and within the community. We Care Community Services set up a cloud-based contact center and tele-counseling facilities so that staff can take calls from their homes to continue serving persons with addiction issues. This approach increased participation rates among its beneficiaries. Together, the COVID-19 support measures should be seen in the context of the larger suite of measures to protect jobs and livelihoods and support our businesses during this crisis. Some people have said that the support for jobs is big, while the support to me or my household seems small. A thoughtful commentator said to me, "It is right that the government has devoted, as a key plank of the 4 budgets, this central focus on supporting our workers to retain their jobs or to move into new jobs. Because should the sole breadwinner of the family loses his or her job, the effect on the whole family is much more adverse. So it is important that we see this in totality, not just what is in each little compartment. Moreover, bear in mind that our social spending has nearly doubled over the last 10 years, and this reflects our commitment to invest in and support our people." Ms. Joan Pereira, Mr. Terence Ho, and Ms. Yip Ping Siu spoke on areas that merit additional support. I would like to assure them that even as we battle the pandemic, we will continue our longer-term investments in education, housing, and healthcare, and continue to uplift our arts and sports sectors. We will take lessons from COVID-19 to continue refining our social support policies to help build stronger families and communities. Individuals and the community too play a part. Ms. Shara Chan said, and I quote, "The government can act as a catalyst, but we ourselves must be the change makers." There is a role for every Singaporean to play. We have the reserves of strength and kindness in each of us to pay it forward, indeed, all resources to help support someone else. Moments of crisis are tests of the strength of our reserves. And we have the strength, not least in all of us, in ourselves as a people. We have the fortitude to each do our part and emerge stronger. Mr. Speaker, sir, let me say a few words in Mandarin before I conclude in English. 今天是阻断期结束后的第4天，我们进入的
circuit period, we have entered the first phase of resuming work and school. As we are unable to predict how the COVID-19 situation will evolve, we will need to remain prudent and observe safe distancing measures. If everyone is socially responsible, then it is possible that by the end of June, we will be able to enter the second phase of reopening. In the past few months, the global economy has been badly hit in terms of demand and supply. As a small and open economy, Singapore has also been severely affected. In 4 months, we have come up with 4 budgets totaling about around $100 billion to deal with the COVID-19 situation, to protect our health, save jobs, save livelihoods, save businesses, and protect our future. The budget not only protects us during the storm, but also acts as a buffer during the current crisis. It is also a booster that will drive the economy when the storm passes, and will help Singaporeans and businesses prepare for the future. The tripartite partners will continue to work closely. This is one of the key factors that will help us overcome the crisis. However, we should not believe that every job will be saved or all companies will be able to continue operating. Those who are badly hit by COVID-19 and those who need to make structural changes will have to overhaul their business strategies. Only by saving viable businesses can we protect every worker, protect their livelihoods. Hence, the government will do its best to create jobs and training opportunities for Singaporeans. The newly established National Jobs Council is also committed to help jobless Singaporeans return to the workplace. At the same time, through various measures complemented by various industry transformation maps, we will speed up the pace of economic transformation. The government will also help companies reduce costs and retain their workers. We will also provide cash grants to Singaporeans, especially to help middle to lower income families manage living expenses, to take care of Singaporeans in need as far as possible. In other countries, governments have issued debt to finance their relief measures. Singapore is different because Singaporeans from previous generations and previous governments have been managing our finances prudently. We are able to accumulate national reserves through the years. So we have been able to respond decisively to the crisis without taking on debt. We will use every dollar wisely so that the economy can recover swiftly. In the future, we are determined to rebuild our economy and work hard for our next generation. We will also need to continue to manage our finances prudently, increase our income through sustainable avenues to meet the needs of current expenditures. The post-COVID world will be totally different. We must be prepared for the new normal. The COVID-19 situation has worsened the impact of economic cycles, speed up structural changes in the global economy, and deepen the fault lines between countries. Digitalization of the economy will be deeper, broader, faster, and market structures, trade flow, people and capital flow will also be affected. Singapore will continue to strengthen trade and economic links with other countries to stabilize our supply chains and trade networks. Companies must move with the times in order to seize opportunities. Workers must also upskill and be willing to take on new jobs. The COVID-19 situation has also highlighted the challenges faced by people in need. However, it is encouraging that Singaporeans have shown their best during this period. For example, our cohesion and empathy by helping those around us who are in need. I hope Singaporeans will continue to show care for others. I also hope that through the Singapore Together movement, we will be able to create a more inclusive and caring society. This is undoubtedly the most serious challenge faced by our generation. The First World War resulted in a lost generation. Internationally, there are also discussions on whether lockdowns due to COVID-19 will lead to a lockdown generation. I strongly believe that Singapore has the capability to overcome the crisis. As long as we work together, stay united and resilient, forge ahead with fortitude, there will be no lockdown generation. Conversely, we will emerge stronger and become a generation that is more united, stronger and more resilient.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I will now conclude in English. At the start of the speech, I spoke about the great uncertainty ahead and the fundamental shifts that are taking place at an accelerated pace. What does this changed world demand of us? There is no easy answer. We need to adapt and transform ourselves with agility, creativity, and determination. To survive and emerge stronger from the huge uncertainties ahead, we must get three things right. First, we must have good governance and strong adaptive leadership. A government that works with you and for you, that is always honest with our people about the truth, steadfast in preparing and anticipating what lies ahead, and committed to supporting our people and businesses to meet uncertainty head-on and emerge stronger. We must have strong social reserves, not just in each of us as individuals, or just in our different communities, but across all levels and parts of our society, working together and holding one another up with trust and in solidarity. And we must be crystal clear and unwavering about our values and mission, what we stand for, and what we are here to achieve. This makes up the essence of the Singapore Together movement, which I launched last year to take Singapore forward. More than ever before, these fundamentals will be crucial as we navigate the uncertainties ahead. Our circumstances have changed over the years, but the government's aspirations for Singapore have not. It is to be a place where our people, regardless of race, language, or religion, can build a better life. We seek to be a vibrant and innovative economy so as to create good jobs and opportunities for our people. A smart, green, healthy, and livable city that we can be proud to call home. A fair, just, and harmonious society where our people care for and support one another. And a safe and secure nation and a responsible member of the global community. This is not the first crisis that Singapore has faced, nor will it be the last. Past generations of Singaporeans have weathered numerous challenges. The pioneer generation survived the hardships of World War II. The Merdeka generation grew up in a tumultuous period leading up to Singapore's independence. In recent times, Singaporeans experienced the Asian financial crisis in 1997, the dot-com bust in 2001, SARS in 2003, and the global financial crisis in 2008. What about our generation? How will we respond to this crisis of a generation? Each generation's crisis and response is different. The one constant is how we have persevered with fortitude and emerged stronger. This time, there will be huge uncertainties ahead. But we will continue to persevere, and we will once again emerge stronger. We are fighting this battle from a position of strength. We have a strong fiscal position. Our founding generation left us a legacy of a sizable reserve, which we must continue to treasure and build on. We have strong social reserves, supported by mutual trust, close partnership, strong values, and a sense of mutual responsibility and support. But more importantly, we are fighting this battle from a position of unity, resilience, solidarity, and fortitude. We stand together as one united country and one people. We are uniquely fortunate to have built up a priceless harmony, sense of common identity, and shared destiny, even as we draw on our diversity of strengths and experiences. We are a resilient people. We will never allow a crisis to bring us down. Even in these trying times, we continue to look ahead. Our people are hardworking and disciplined, willing to learn new skills and adapt. We have enterprising businesses that are ready to grasp new opportunities and thrive in the face of competition. We stand in solidarity with and care for and support one another, especially the more vulnerable members of our society. Our people, businesses, the labor movement, and the government stand together in partnership, not in division. We stand in solidarity with countries around the world in this pandemic, building on our assets of trust, reliability, and efficiency. We have the grit to persevere in adversity with fortitude. We will forge new paths and never waver in our efforts to build a stronger Singapore together. We have a strong healthcare system with highly dedicated frontline workers who have worked day and night over the last few months to keep us safe. We will overcome this crisis with fortitude and solidarity. We will emerge stronger as an economy, as a society, and as one united, resilient, and determined people.